Let me guess. You're earning just enough to survive, but never enough to actually relax. Every month feels like a tightrope walk. One unexpected expense, and everything falls apart. Payday hits, and disappears just as quickly. And somewhere deep down, you've started believing a very dangerous idea that if you just made more money, everything would finally be okay. That once you cross some invisible income line, the stress will fade, life will stabilize, and wealth will just naturally follow. But here's the part nobody tells you. You've been sold a half-truth. You were told, work hard, play by the rules, and you'll make it. What they didn't tell you is that the system around you is designed to make you spend faster than you earn. The ads, the you deserve it messaging, the easy financing, it's not random, it's intentional. And you've been playing inside that system your whole life, without questioning it. Machiavelli warned about this kind of thinking centuries ago. He said people aren't destroyed because they lack opportunity, they're destroyed because they misunderstand power. And money works the same way. Income is not power. Control is. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never hear. You don't feel trapped because your salary is too small. You feel trapped because you don't have a strategy. Wealth doesn't begin when your paycheck grows. It begins the moment your behavior changes. I didn't learn this from a book. I learned it the hard way. There was a time when I believed the next raise would fix everything. I thought more income meant more freedom. But when the money increased, nothing changed. The stress stayed exactly the same, because my habits didn't change. And it wasn't until I stopped blaming my income and started analyzing my behavior that things finally shifted. That's when Machiavelli started making sense to me, not as philosophy, but as survival. And if this idea makes you uncomfortable, that's actually a good sign. Because real transformation always starts when illusions break. History proves this again and again. Take John D. Rockefeller. Before the oil empire, before the billions, before the power, he was just a young bookkeeper earning a modest income, nothing extraordinary. But from his very first paycheck, he followed one rule with absolute discipline. He paid himself first. Even when money was tight. Even when it felt uncomfortable. Even when it seemed almost irresponsible. He believed something most people never understand, that his future self deserved a portion of his income before anyone else. That habit didn't make him rich overnight, but it gave him something far more important early on. Control. And control always comes before power. Most people do the exact opposite. They pay rent. They pay bills. They pay for subscriptions they barely use. They pay for convenience, comfort, and momentary relief. And then, if something is left, they think about saving. That's not a system. That's surrender. That's reacting to life instead of directing it. And Machiavelli had no respect for reactive people. He believed that fortune favors those who prepare, not those who hope. So, let's flip this. Strategy 1. Pay yourself like you owe yourself money. Think about it like this. If you owed your landlord money and decided to just wait until next month, what would happen? Pressure, consequences, urgency. But when it comes to your future, you treat it like a suggestion, something optional, something flexible. That's backwards. Your future self is the most important creditor you will ever have. Ignore it long enough, and it will collect in ways far more painful than late fees. Now, this is where people push back. They say, I don't make enough to save. But that's not logic. That's an excuse. Because the amount isn't the point. The habit is. Let's say you earn $20 a month, or even 20. Before anything else, before bills, food, or entertainment, you move a small amount aside, maybe 1,000, maybe even 500. Is that life-changing? No. But that's not what it's doing. What it's actually doing is rewiring your identity. It's training your brain to accept one powerful truth. Wealth building is non-negotiable. It's not something you do when things are perfect. It's something you do because things aren't perfect. This is how real wealth starts. Not with luck, not with big wins, but with small, consistent discipline that feels almost meaningless at first. Warren Buffett understood this early. As a teenager delivering newspapers, he saved aggressively. Not because he was making huge money, but because he understood the power of habit. He once said, "The best investment you can make is in yourself." What he didn't say directly is that self-investment starts with self-respect, and paying yourself first is exactly that. It's a signal, a declaration, that your future matters more than your present comfort. Most people never make this shift. They keep saying, "One day I'll start saving. One day I'll invest. One day I'll be disciplined." But Machiavelli had no patience for one-day people. He believed power belongs to those who act even with limited resources, especially with limited resources. Because when you act under pressure, you build character. And character is what sustains wealth long-term. Now here's what's interesting. Once you start paying yourself first, something subtle begins to happen. Your mindset shifts. You stop seeing money as something that just comes and goes. You start seeing it as something you control. And that shift, even though it's quiet, is what separates people who eventually win from those who stay stuck forever. You're no longer waiting for life to improve. You're building a system that improves regardless of life. Now pause for a second. Don't think about how much you earn. Think about how you treat yourself financially. Are you avoiding it? Are you inconsistent? Are you just starting? Put it into one or two words in your mind. Because that awareness is the first real step. And if you go deeper into this way of thinking, quiet strategies, long-term control, real leverage, you start to realize something else. The money you thought you didn't have was actually leaking, slowly, quietly, in ways you never questioned. And until you expose those leaks, no amount of discipline will ever be enough. That's exactly what we're getting into next. Now here's what happens next. The moment you start paying yourself first, something shifts. You don't feel broke, but you do feel tighter, more aware. And for a lot of people, that's where panic kicks in. They think, this isn't working. Why does money suddenly feel restricted? But this is actually the turning point. Machiavelli would call this the moment of truth, when pressure exposes reality and illusions start to collapse. Because what you're about to realize is this. It's not that you don't make enough money. It's that your money has been leaving without your permission. Let me ask you something honestly. Have you ever opened your banking app and thought, where did all of it go? Not casually. Not joking. Actually confused. Like the money just disappeared. It feels like theft. But it's not. Money doesn't vanish. It escapes. Quietly, repeatedly, invisibly. And until you track it, you're fighting something you refuse to look at. Machiavelli warned that the most dangerous threats are the ones you don't see. The same applies here. Strategy 2. Track every dollar like it owes you rent. Because until you do, you're operating blind. Most people think they have a money problem. They don't. They have a clarity problem. Here's what that looks like in real life. It's Thursday night. You're tired. Long day. You tell yourself, I'll cook tomorrow. So, you open an app, order something simple. $300 for the food. 80 times service fee. 60 delivery. 40 tip. That's almost $500 gone for one meal. Friday comes, same story. Sunday, maybe worse. Now add a drink, maybe dessert. And none of it feels like a decision. It feels automatic, like breathing. Then the end of the month hits. You check your statement. 8,000, 10,000, maybe more, just on delivery. And you swear it couldn't have been that much. You thought maybe 2,000. That gap between what you think you spend and what you actually spend, that's where your wealth is quietly disappearing. And it's not just food. It's 200 coffees, random subscriptions you forgot about, quick, small purchases that somehow turn into 2,000 bills. None of it feels dangerous in the moment. That's the trick. Power is rarely taken from you in one big move. It's taken through hundreds of small ones. The wealthy have always understood this. During the rise of the Rothschild banking empire, they tracked everything, every transaction, every movement. Not because they were cheap, because they were precise. They knew where their money was going, which meant they knew where to redirect it. Awareness creates leverage. Without it, you're negotiating with yourself from a position of weakness. Now here's the important part. You don't need a fancy system. Use whatever works. An app, a spreadsheet, even your notes app. The tool doesn't matter. The act does. Because when you start seeing your numbers clearly, something uncomfortable happens. You stop lying to yourself. You can't say, I don't spend that much. You can't say, it's just this once. The numbers don't care about your story. They show patterns. And patterns reveal identity. This is where real discipline starts. Not from motivation, but from discomfort. Whether you're in your 20s spending on things you barely use, or in your 40s wondering where years of income went, the realization is the same. You're not actually broke. You've just been careless, in ways you never questioned. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's power. Machiavelli believed that once you truly understand something, you're forced to act. Most people never even reach that point. But once you do, you move to the next shift. Strategy 3. Live like you're broke, even when you're not. This is where ego gets involved. Because we live in a world that rewards appearance over reality, flash over foundation. Looking rich matters more than being free. But here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Rich people often look average, and average people try very hard to look rich. The middle class is stuck in between, draining itself trying to maintain an image. There's a reason this matters. When you live below your means, you create margin. And margin creates options. And options create power. Machiavelli would call this positioning. You don't show your strength. You build it quietly. Think about this. Someone driving a 10-year-old car, no debt, consistently investing. That person has more power than someone driving a brand new luxury car on EMI, living paycheck to paycheck. One is free. The other is trapped by image. You see this everywhere. A software engineer earning a decent income, lives simply for 4 or 5 years, invests consistently, builds a solid portfolio. Meanwhile, someone earning double upgrades everything car, house, lifestyle, and ends up stressed, dependent, stuck. Same world, different outcomes. Not because of income, because of discipline. This is what I call stealth living. You intentionally make your life cheaper than it needs to be. Not because you enjoy struggle, but because you value leverage. You delay gratification, while everyone else rushes into it. And over time, the gap grows. Not dramatically, quietly. That's how real wealth works. But discipline alone isn't enough. Machiavelli never believed in just surviving. He believed in expansion. Once you stop the leaks and create margin, you ask a better question. How do I grow without burning myself out? That's where the next move comes in. Strategy 4. Build quiet income. Now forget everything hustle culture told you. You don't need to destroy yourself working 16 hours a day. You don't need 3 jobs and no sleep. That's not strategy. That's desperation. The goal isn't to suffer more. The goal is to build systems that earn without constant effort. Quiet income looks boring. That's why it works. Freelance work you do once a week. Digital products you create once and sell repeatedly. Selling templates. Writing scripts. Flipping undervalued items. Nothing flashy. Nothing loud. But effective. I know someone who created a simple digital product years ago. They barely touch it now, but it still generates a few $100s every month. No hype. No constant work. Just consistency. Over time, that becomes serious money. Here's what most people underestimate. $10,000 a month extra, invested properly, over years, becomes lax. But more importantly, it changes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who depends only on a paycheck. You become someone with options, layers, backup systems. And that's what power actually feels like. Not loud, not flashy, stable. Now, pause again. Think about your life. Where is money leaking? And where could you create even a small extra stream to overcomplicate it? 1 or 2 words. That's enough. Because once you create margin and start building quiet income, a new danger shows up. And this one is more subtle than everything before. The urge to touch it. To reward yourself early. To break the system just a little. And if you don't learn how to protect what you've built, you'll slowly destroy your own progress. That's exactly what we're getting into next. Now, this is where everything either holds or falls apart. Because once you've built some margin, once a little extra money starts stacking up, a new enemy shows up. Not bad luck. Not the economy. You. Machiavelli understood this better than most. He said people aren't usually destroyed by outside forces. They're destroyed by their inability to control themselves. And that becomes very real the moment money starts to grow. Because as your bank balance increases, so does temptation. You start thinking, I've been disciplined, I deserve something. And just like that, one decision turns into 2, then 5, then 10, until months of progress quietly disappear. That's why this next move matters more than people realize. Strategy 5. Make your money untouchable. Because discipline is fragile. Systems are not. Most people think they need more self-control. They don't. They need friction, distance, barriers between them, and their impulses. Because if your money is easy to access, it's easy to destroy. All it takes is one late night, one emotional decision, one I deserve this moment, and everything starts slipping. So here's a simple but powerful move. Open a second account. Different bank. No debit card. No easy access. No app on your phone. Then automate a small transfer every time you get paid. 500, 1,000, whatever you can sustain. And then, forget about it. Out of sight becomes out of mind. Out of mind becomes untouched. And untouched becomes still there a year later. This isn't theory. This is how people on average incomes quietly save lakhs over time. Not because they're smarter, because they remove temptation. We live in a world designed for instant gratification. One tap, and your money is gone. Machiavelli would never rely on willpower alone. He believed in structure, in designing systems where winning becomes inevitable. You don't fight temptation. You outsmart it. Now, once your money is protected, the next step becomes critical. Strategy 6. Invest even if it's 500 at a time. This is where most people hesitate for years. They say, I'll start when I have more money. But that moment never comes. Because investing isn't about having money. It's about becoming the kind of person who invests. People who start early don't wait for comfort. They act while it feels small, even pointless. Warren Buffett bought his first stock as a kid, not because the amount mattered, but because ownership changed how he saw money. And that's the real shift. Ownership. That's the line between people who stay stuck and people who build wealth. Poor thinking focuses on spending. Wealthy thinking focuses on owning. Because spending disappears instantly. Ownership compounds quietly. If you're waiting to invest because 500 feels too small, you're missing the entire point. That 500 isn't about returns. It's training. It's repetition. It's identity. Because one day it won't be 500. It'll be 5,000, 50,000. And by then, you'll already know what to do. Time in the market beats timing the market. Because time changes behavior. And behavior determines outcomes. Machiavelli believed power grows through consistency, not bursts of effort. And this is exactly that. Now here's the shift that changes everything. Wealth is not income. Wealth is ownership. The moment you own even a small piece of something that grows, you step into a different game. That's why wealthy people look calm. Their money is working, even when they're not. Broke people chase experiences. Wealthy people build leverage. And that brings us to the next level. Strategy 7. Use rich math. Because poor math is emotional. Rich math is intentional. Poor math asks, can I afford the monthly payment? Rich math asks, what will this cost me over time? That one difference changes everything. Most people budget like this. Rent, bills, food, lifestyle, and whatever's left. Maybe savings. That's survival. That's living at the edge. Rich math flips it. Needs first. Then wealth building. Then, if anything remains, wants. This isn't restriction. It's prioritization. There's a popular rule, 50-30-20. 50% needs. 30% wants. 20% savings. That's a start. But real progress begins when you push further. 60% needs. 30% wealth. 10% wants. Now you're playing offense. This is how someone earning 40,000 can outperform someone earning 150,000. Because one is intentional. The other is reactive. And here's the truth most people avoid. People don't go broke because they earn too little. They go broke because they believe they deserve comfort now. Rich math says, freedom later is worth more. And it always is. But even this won't save you. If you're still trapped in the system, most people never question. Strategy 8. Kill middle-class debt traps. This one stings. Because it's normalized. Buy now, pay later. Car EMIs. Minimum credit card payments. Endless subscriptions. None of it looks dangerous. That's why it works. A 70,000 month car EMI for a vehicle you barely use. A 0% EMI TV that feels free but trains you to finance everything. These aren't purchases. They're patterns. They condition you to live beyond your means, comfortably. And here's something most people don't think about. Financial systems don't profit when you're wealthy. They profit when you're in debt. Every low monthly payment is designed to keep you dependent. Every credit increase is a longer leash. It feels like access, but it's control. Machiavelli would call it exactly that. Debt doesn't just cost money. It costs freedom. Because once your lifestyle depends on payments, you can't walk away from your job, from pressure, from anything. If it doesn't pay you back, it's a liability. Simple. You don't need to look rich. You need to be free. The person with no EMIs, consistent investments, and a simple lifestyle is winning, even if nobody notices. Actually, especially because nobody notices. Now, pause again. Think about one expense, one debt that doesn't serve you. Just one. That awareness alone starts the shift. Because once you reduce debt and start building ownership, something changes. You stop needing validation. You stop performing. You disappear. And that's where real power begins. This is where we step into the final phase. Strategy 9. Build stealth wealth. Most people think wealth is loud. Cars, clothes, vacations, status. But those are signals, not substance. And signals attract attention. Attention creates pressure. Pressure leads to bad decisions. Real wealth avoids all of that. Machiavelli said, "The strongest position is the one least noticed." Not hidden out of fear, but protected through strategy. Stealth wealth means you're financially strong. Without announcing it, no pressure to impress. No lifestyle competition. No need to prove anything. You move quietly, and your money grows quietly. Picture a millionaire. Now erase the image you just had, because in real life, they're often invisible. Simple clothes, normal car, no noise, no show. You'd walk past them and never notice. That's not an accident. That's control. Because when nobody expects you to spend, you don't feel forced to. You're not performing anymore. You're positioning. Old money understood this. They stayed wealthy not by showing it, but by protecting it, because visibility invites interference, and quiet protects momentum. This is the real flex. Not worrying about a 20,000 emergency, owning your time, being able to say no, sleeping peacefully because your life isn't financed. That's wealth. Not noise, not attention, silence. And silence is expensive. Now, here's the final move that ties everything together. Strategy 10. Automate everything, then forget about it. Because motivation fades, discipline weakens, life gets busy. Machiavelli never trusted human consistency. He trusted systems. So, build systems that don't rely on how you feel. Automatic transfers. Automatic investments, automatic bill payments, everything handled without asking you, because you won't always feel disciplined. But automation doesn't care. It executes anyway. That's how wealth quietly compounds in the background, while you live your life. And here's the paradox. The less you think about money, the more consistently it grows, because systems outperform willpower. Every time. You won't manually save every month forever, but an automated system will. Years pass. Balances grow. And one day, you look back and realize something powerful. You didn't hustle your way out of scarcity. You designed your way out. That's the truth most people miss. You don't need a higher income to build wealth. You need better behavior, better systems, more control. Quiet wealth isn't built with hype. It's built with habits, patience, structure, and restraint. While everyone else is chasing fast results, you're building something that lasts. Slowly, silently, If your income feels small, good, because that means strategy matters more. Discipline is powerful, but automation is unstoppable. Build the system once. Let it run. Let time do the heavy lifting, and let silence protect your progress. Now don't think about where you are. Think about who you're becoming. Not trying. Not starting. Becoming. One word. That's it. Because that word is the identity you step into from today. And once that identity is set, everything else follows. Quietly. If this shifted the way you see yourself even a little, then don't stop here. Because what you've heard in this video is only the surface. There are deeper layers to psychology, influence, and wealth that simply can't be explored fully in one video. Not because they don't exist, but because most people aren't ready to hear them. That's why most stay average. If you're not one of them, then subscribe. Because every video here is designed to sharpen your mindset, increase your value, and separate you from the crowd. No fluff. No noise. Just strategy. Most people will watch this and move on. A few will stay and change. Decide which one you are.